All praises to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. Peace and blessing to the elect of Israel who are out there practicing the law of liberty. So we're going to continue today in the second book of Adam and Eve. The second book of Adam and Eve. And I think we left off in chapter 12 last time, so we're going to pick it up in chapter 13. In those days lived Lamech the blind, who was the son of Cain. He had a son whose name was Atum, A-T-U-N, and they too had much cattle. But Lamech was in the habit of sending them to feed with a young shepherd who tended them, and who, when coming home in the evening, wept before his grandfather and before his father Atum and his mother Hazanim, and said to them, As for me, I cannot feed those cattle alone, lest one rob me of some of them, or kill me for the sake of them. For among the children of Cain there is much robbery, murder, and sin. Then Lamech pitied him and said, Truly, he, when alone, might be overpowered by the men of this place. So Lamech arose, took a bow he had kept ever since he was a youth, ere he became blind, and he took large arrows and smooth stones in a sling which he had, and went to the field with the young shepherd, and placed himself behind the cattle, while the young shepherd watched the cattle. Thus did Lamech many days. Meanwhile Cain, ever since God had cast him off and had cursed him with trembling and terror, could neither settle nor find rest in any one place, but wandered from place to place. In his wandering he came to Lamech's wives, and asked them about him. Then said to him, He is in the field with cattle. Then Cain went to look for him. And as he came into the field, the young shepherd heard the noise he made, and the cattle herding together from before him. Then said he to Lamech, O my lord, is that a wild beast or a robber? And Lamech said to him, Make me understand which way he looks when he comes up. Then Lamech bent his bow, placed an arrow on it, and fitted a stone in the sling. And when Cain came out from the open country, the shepherd said to Lamech, Shoot, behold, he is coming. Then Lamech shot at Cain with his arrow, and hit him in the side. And Lamech struck him with a stone from his sling, that fell upon his face, and knocked both his eyes. Then Cain fell at once, and died. Then Lamech and the young shepherd came up to him, and found him lying on the ground. And the young shepherd said to him, It is Cain, our grandfather, whom thou hast killed, O my lord. Then was Lamech sorrow for it, and from the bitterness of his regret he clapped his hands together, and struck with his flat palm the head of the youth, who fell as if dead. But Lamech thought it was a feint, so he took up a stone and smote him, and smashed his head until he died. Chapter 14. When Enos was 900 years old, all the children of Seth and of Canaan and his firstborn, with their wives and children, gathered around him, asking for a blessing from him. He then prayed over them and blessed them, and adjured them by the blood of Abel, the just, saying to them, Let no one of your children go down from this holy mountain. Let them make no fellowship with the children of Cain, the murderer. Then Enos called his son Canaan, and said to him, See, O my son, set thy heart on thy people, and establish them in righteousness and in innocence, and stand ministering before the body of our father Adam all the days of thy life. After this Enos entered into rest, aged 985 years, and Canaan wound him up and laid him in the cave of treasures on the left of his father Adam, and made offerings for him after the customs of his fathers. Chapter 15. After the death of Enos, Canaan stood at the head of his people in righteousness and innocence, and as his father had commanded him. He also continued to minister before the body of Adam inside the cave of treasures. Then when he had lived 910 years, suffering and afflictions came upon him. And when he was about to enter into rest, all the fathers with their wives and children came to him, and he blessed them and adjured them by the blood of Abel, the just, saying to them, Let not one among you go down from this holy mountain, and make no fellowship with the children of Cain, the murderer. Mahalalel, his firstborn son, received this commandment from his father, who blessed him and died. Then Mahalalel embalmed him with sweet spices and laid him in the cave of treasures with his fathers, and they made offerings for him after the customs of their fathers. Chapter 16. Then Mahalalel stood over his children, over the people, and fed them in righteousness and innocence, and watched them to see they held no intercourse with the children of Cain. He also continued in the cave of treasures, praying and ministering before the body of our father Adam, asking God for mercy on him, on himself, and on his people, until he was 870 years old, when he fell sick. Then all the children gathered unto him to see him, and to ask for his blessings on them all, and he left this world. Then Mahalalel arose and sat on his bed, his tears streaming down his face, and he called his eldest son Jared, who came to him. And then he kissed his face and said to him, O Jared, my son, I adjure thee by him who made heaven and earth, to watch over thy people and feed them in righteousness and in innocence, not to let one of them go down from the holy mountain to the children of Cain, lest he perish with them. Then Jared kept his father's commandments and arose like a lion. Oh, this is chapter 17. Chapter 17. Then Jared kept his father's commandment and arose like a lion over his people. He fed them in righteousness and innocence, and commanded them to do nothing without his counsel, for he was afraid concerning them, that they should go to the children of Cain. Wherefore did he give them orders repeatedly, and continued to do so until the end of the 485th year of his life. At the end of these said years, there came unto him this sign: as Jared was standing like a lion before the bodies of his fathers, praying and warning his people, Satan envied him and wrought a beautiful apparition before Jared, would not let his children do aught without his counsel. Satan then appeared to him with 30 men of his host, in the form of handsome men, Satan himself being the elder and tallest among them, with a fine beard. They stood at the mouth of the cave, and called out Jared from within it. He came out to them, and found them looking like fine men, full of light and of great beauty. He wondered at their beauty and at their looks, and thought within himself whether they might not be of the children of Cain. He said also in his heart, as the children of Cain cannot come up to the height of this mountain, and none of them is so handsome as there appear to be among these men, there is not one of my kindred. They must be strangers. Then Jared and they exchanged a greeting, and he said to the elder among them, O my father, explain to me the wonder that is in thee, and tell me whose these are with thee, for they look to me like strange men. Then the elder began to weep, and the rest wept with him. And he said to Jared, I am Adam, whom God made first, and this is Abel, my son, who was killed by his brother Cain, into whose heart Satan put to murder him. Then this is my son Seth, whom I asked the Lord, who gave him to me, to comfort me instead of Abel. Then this is my son Enos, son of Seth. That other one is Canaanite, the son of Enos, and that other one is Mahalalel, the son of Canaanite, thy father. But Jared remained wondering at their appearance and at their speech of the elder to them. Then the elder said to him, Marvel not, O my son, we live in the land north of the garden, which God created before the world. He would not let us live there, but placed us inside the garden, below which ye are now dwelling. But after that I transgressed. He made me come out of it, and I left to dwell in this cave. Great and sore troubles came upon me, and when my death drew near, I commanded my son Seth to tend his people well, and this my commandment is to be handed from one to another until the end of the generations to come. But O Jared, my son, we live in beautiful regions, where you live here in misery. as this thy father Mahalalel informed me, telling me that a great flood would come and overwhelm the whole earth. Therefore, O my son, fearing for your sake, I rose and took my children with me, and came hither for us to visit thee and thy children. But I found thee standing in this cave weeping, and thy children scattered about this mountain in the heat and in misery. But, O my son, as we missed our ways and came afar as this, we found other men below this mountain who inhabit a beautiful country, full of trees and fruit, and all manner of verdure. It is like a garden, so that when we found them, we thought they were you, until thy father Mahalalel told me that were not such things. Now therefore, O my son, hearken to my counsel, and go down to them, thou and thy children. Ye will rest from all this suffering in which you are. But if thou wilt not go down to them, arise, take thy children, and come with us to our garden. Yet shall live in our beautiful land, and ye shall rest from all this trouble which thou and thy children are now bearing. But Jared, when he heard this discourse from the elder, wondered, and went hither and thither. But at the moment he found not one of his children. Then he answered and said to the elder, Why has you hidden yourself until this day? And the elder replied, If thy father had not told us, we should not have known it. Then Jared believed his words were true. So that elder said to Jared, Wherefore didst thou turn about so and so? And he said, I was seeking one of my children to tell them about my going with you, and about their coming down to those about whom thou hast spoke to me. When the elder heard Jared's intentions, he said to him, Let alone thy purpose at present, and come with us. Thou shalt see our country. If the land in which we dwell please thee, we and thou should return hither and take thy family with us. But if our country does not please thee, thou should come back to thy own place. And the elder urged Jared to go before one of his children came to counsel him otherwise. Jared then came out of the cave and went with them and among them, and they comforted him until they came to the top of the mountain of the sons of Cain. Then said the elder to one of his companions, We have forgotten something by the mouth of the cave, that is, the chosen garment we had bought to clothe Jared with. He then said to one of them, Go back, thou, someone, and we will wait for thee here until thou come back. Then we will clothe Jared, and he shall be like us, good, handsome, and fit to come with us into the country. Then one went back. But when he was a short distance off, the elder called to him and said to him, Tarry thou until I come up and speak to thee. Then he stood still, and the elder went up to him and said to him, One thing we forgot at the cave. It is this, to put out the lamp that burns inside above the bodies that are therein, and come back to us quick. Then one went, and the elder came back to his fellows and to Jared. And they came down from the mountain, and Jared went with them. And they stayed by a fountain of water, near the houses of the children of Cain, and waited for their companion until he bought the garment for Jared. He then, who went back to the cave, put out the lamp, and came to them, and bought a phantom with him, and showed it them. And when Jared saw it, he wondered at the beauty and grace thereof, and rejoiced in his heart, believing it was true. But while they were staying there, 3 of them went into the house of the sons of Cain, and said to them, Bring us today some food by the fountain of water for us and our companions to eat. But when the sons of Cain saw them, they wondered at them and thought, These are beautiful to look at, and such as we never saw before. So they rose and came with them to the fountain of water to see their companions. They found them so very handsome that they cried aloud about their places for others to gather together and come and look at these beautiful beings. Then they gathered around them, men and women. Then the elder said to them, We are strangers in your land. Bring us some good food and drink, you and your women, to refresh ourselves with you. When these men heard these words of the elders, every one of Cain's sons bought his wife, and another bought his daughters. And so many women came to them, every one addressing Jared either for himself or for his wife, all alike. But when Jared saw what they did, his very soul wrenched itself from them. Neither would he taste of their food or their drink. The elder saw hint as he wrenched himself from them, and said to him, Be not sad, I am the great elder, and thou shouldst see me do thou likewise in like manner. Then he spread his hands and took one of the women and 5 of the companions did the same before Jared, that he should do as they did. But when Jared saw them working infirmity, he wept and said in his mind, "My fathers never did the like." He then spread his hands and prayed with a fervent heart, with much weeping, and entreated God to deliver him from their hands. No sooner than Jared began to pray that the elders fled with their companions, for they could not abide in the place of prayer. Then Jared turned around, but could not see them, but found himself standing in the midst of the children of Cain. He then wept and said, O God, destroy me not with this race, concerning which my father had warned me. For now, O my Lord God, I was thinking that those who appeared unto me were my fathers, but I have found them out to be devils, who allured me by this beautiful apparition, until I believed them. But now I ask thee, O God, to deliver me from this race among whom I am now, staying as thou did deliver me from these devils. Send thy angels to draw me out of the midst of them, for I have not myself power to escape from amongst them. When Jared had ended his prayer, God sent his angels in the midst of them, who took Jared and set him upon the mountain, and showed him the way, gave him counsel, and they departed from him. Chapter 18. The children of Jared were in the habit of visiting him hour after hour to receive his blessing and to ask his advice for everything they did. And when they had a work to do, they did it for him. But this time, when they went into the cave, they found not Jared, but they found the lamp put out, and the bodies of their father thrown about. And the voices came from them by the power of God that said, Satan in his apparitions has deceived our son, wishing to destroy him, as he destroyed our son Cain. They said also, Lord God of heaven and earth, deliver our son from the hand of Satan, who wrought a great and false apparition before him. They also spake of other matters by the power of God. But when the children of Jared heard these voices, they feared and stood weeping for their father, but they knew not what had befallen him. And they wept for him that day until the setting of the sun. Then came Jared with a woeful countenance, wretched in mind and body, and sorrowful at having been separated from the bodies of his father. But as he was drawing near to the cave, his children saw him and hastened to the cave and hung upon his neck, crying and saying to him, O Father, where hast thou been? Why hast thou left us, as thou wast not wont to do? Again, O Father, when thou didst disappear, the lamp over the bodies of our fathers went out, and the bodies were thrown about, and voices came from them. When Jared heard this, he was sorry, and went into the cave, and there found the bodies thrown about, and the lamp put out, and the fathers themselves praying for his deliverance from the hand of Satan. Then Jared fell upon the bodies and embraced them and said, O my fathers, through your intercession, let God deliver me from the hand of Satan. And I beg you, will ask God to keep me and to abide me from him until the day of my death. Then all the voices ceased, save the voice of our father Adam, who spake to Jared by the power of God, just as one would speak to his fellow, saying, O Jared, my son, offer gifts to God for having delivered thee from the hand of Satan. And when thou bringest those offerings, so be it that thou offer them to the altar on which I did offer. Then also beware of Satan, for he deluded me many a times with his apparitions, wishing to destroy me, but God delivered me out of his hands. Command thy people that they be on their guard against him, and never cease to offer up gifts to God. Then the voice of Adam also became silent, and Jared and his children wondered at this. Then they laid their bodies as they were at first, and Jared and his children stood praying the whole of that night until daybreak. Then Jared made an offering, and offered it upon the altar, as Adam had commanded him. And as he went up to the altar, he prayed to God for mercy and for forgiveness of his sin concerning the lamp going out. Then God appeared to Jared on the altar and blessed him and the children and accepted their offerings, and commanded Jared to take of the sacred fire from the altar with it to light the lamp that shed light on the bodies of Adam. So we're going to stop right there. Like I always say, listen to this video a couple of times, meditate on it, and may God bless.